Hi, welcome to Pyrography Made Easy. I'm Brenda. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to create the Mandala III pyrography artwork I designed. There will be terms I will be using like circular motion and pull-away strokes. If you're unfamiliar with my terminology, I put a link below to a tutorial that explains them. Well, let's get to work. Use a writer pen tip and burn along the edge of the circle. Then switch to a shader pen tip and burn short, dark pull-away strokes along the circle. Start the stroke on the edge of the circle and pull it towards the center of the circle. Use a writer pen tip to burn a layer of dots over the area in the circle. Then burn along the edges of the fluted border that frames the circle. Use the razor edge of the shader to burn thin lines along the fluted border. Start the line on the inner edge of the border and pull it towards the outer edge. Stop before reaching the outer edge of the border. Use the razor edge of the shader to burn along the edges of the pointed spokes. Then burn short pull-away strokes along the left edge of each spoke. Start the stroke on the left edge and pull it towards the right edge of the spoke. Stop near the halfway mark. Repeat the process of burning short pull-away strokes along the right edge of each spoke. The stroke should start out very dark and end as a brown color. This will make the spokes look rounded. Switch to a knife tip and burn rows of short, thin lines that follow the contours of the cone. Start the first row on the upper edge of the cone and pull the pen tip down towards you. Repeat the next row of short, thin lines a little distance below the first row. Repeat this process of burning rows of thin lines until the cone is filled. Switch to a shader pen tip and burn short lines along the upper edge of the cone top. Each line starts as a small blotch and gets quickly pulled towards the bottom of the cone. Sorry for the poor video quality during this section. My camera did not want to focus. Rotate the board and burn a dark line along the inner edge of each cone topper. Then burn short dark lines along the edge. Again, the line starts as a blotch and then gets quickly pulled towards the outer edge. Use the razor edge of the shader to burn along the pencil lines on the spools. If it is easier, use a writer pen tip for this step. Next, burn short dark pull-away strokes along the right edge of each spool. Start the stroke on the right edge and pull it towards the left edge. Stop near the halfway mark. Sorry, this is another section where my camera didn't focus, but I think you'll understand what's going on. So rotate the wood and repeat the process of burning short pull-away strokes along the left side of each spool. You will start the stroke on the left edge of the spool and pull it towards the right edge. Stop near the halfway mark. This will leave you spools that have very dark edges that get gradually lighter towards the center, and this is what creates that illusion of roundness. Use a writer pen tip to burn along the cone pencil lines. Then use the razor edge of the shader to burn gently curving lines across the cones. If it is easier, use a writer pen tip for this step. Then burn short tan-colored pull-away strokes along each gently curving line. Start the stroke on the line and pull it towards the top of the cone. Repeat this process on each gently curving line on the cone. After one cone is done, Move on to the next cone and repeat the process of burning it in. Next, we will work on the donuts. Begin by burning along its outer edge using the razor edge of the shader. Again, if it is easier for you, use a writer pen tip to burn in the pencil lines. Then burn short, dark pull-away strokes along the outer edge. Start the stroke on the edge and pull it towards the center of the donut. Use a writer pen tip to darkly burn along the edge of the donut hole or the center oval on the donut. Use a medium ball pen tip or a writer pen tip to burn alternating small and large dots around the edge of the donut hole. To make a large dot, just hold the pen tip to the wood for a moment. For small dots, barely touch the pen tip to the wood. After the donut hole has dots around its edge, then burn lines or rows of dots that radiate outward from the center. Keep each line or row of dots the same size as its starting dot. This means that large dots will have a line or row of dots that radiate outward from it. Work your way along each donut, burning alternating lines or rows of large and small dots that radiate outward from the donut hole. Next, use the ball pen tip to burn a row of dark dots near the outer edge of the donut. Then burn a couple of small dots to fill in a few of the blank spaces between the dot lines. Ignore the extra work that has been done. I moved the clips around so that I could keep all of the donut explanations together. Darkly burn along the edges of the donut center. And lastly, burn around the edges of the donut center, but keep the middle of the donut unburned. With the tabs, use a shader or a writer pen tip to burn along their edges. Then burn dark pull-away strokes along the edges of each tab center. Start the stroke on the edge and pull it towards the middle of the tab. This will create a dark brown to black center that has a brown color in the middle of each tab. Fill the right side of the small tabs with color using pull-away strokes. Start the stroke on the right edge and pull it towards the center, stopping near the halfway mark. Then fill the left side of each tab until it is a tan color. Switch to a knife tip and burn parallel or mostly parallel lines that angle downward towards the left of each tab. Rotate the wood and burn parallel lines that angle downward towards the right side of each tab. This will create a crosshatch pattern on the tabs. Notice how the color gets a little darker on each tab after I burn the new layer of lines on it. If you want, you can darken up the tabs even more by burning a layer of vertical lines on each tab. Continue to rotate the wood as needed while you're burning the parallel lines. We're all different on how we hold the pen tips, so some directions work better than others. Now we will work on the sandstone keyholes. Start by burning in the keyhole to a tan color. It doesn't need to be perfectly uniform in color. Then reburn along the left edge of each keyhole. Burn the left edge to a dark brown color, and this will give the idea that that side is in shadows. Use the razor edge of the shader to burn along the remaining edges of the border, framing the sandstone. Remember, if it's easier, use a writer pen tip for this step. Fill the sandstone with a light tan mottled texture. Create the texture using circular motion, or if it's easier, Move your hand in a random squiggly motion just to create some random tan texture on the surface. The most important aspect of this is to make sure to keep the color much paler than the keyhole. The contrast will create the illusion that the keyhole is recessed or sunk down into the surface of the sandstone. Use a shader pen tip to burn short, dark pull-away strokes along the upper right edge of the border. Start the stroke on that outer right edge and pull it towards the inner edge. Stop the stroke at the 1/3 mark. Then repeat this process of burning short, dark pull-away strokes along the upper left edge of the border. Again, start the stroke on the outer edge of the border and pull it towards the inner edge. Stop near the 1/3 mark. Rotate the board and burn short, dark pull-away strokes along the inner edge of the board. Start the stroke on the inner edge and pull it towards the outer edge. Again, stop the stroke near the 1/3 mark. When you are done, you should have a streak of unburned wood running along the center of the border. To finish the border, burn over the center using a zigzag or a quick back and forth motion to give it a little tan color. Use a brighter pen tip to burn a layer of small tan colored dots over the entire surface of the sandstone. This includes the keyholes. After you burn a layer of small dots over the surface, then burn a few large dark dots randomly on the surface. Move on to the next sandstone keyhole and repeat the whole process of applying dots to the surface. Burn in cracks on the surface of the sandstone. Extend a few of the cracks down into the keyhole. Make sure to offset the cracks slightly when burning in the keyhole. Burn darkly along the edges of each oval in the saucer center. I use short pull-away strokes for this step. Then lightly burn over the middle of each oval. Work your way around to each saucer and burn in the ovals so the edges are a dark brown to black color and the center is a dark tan color. Then use a ball pen tip or a writer pen tip and burn a row of dots near the outer edge of each saucer. Grab a pencil and draw a large upside-down U shape that frames the center oval. Next, draw curving lines that start on a dot and arch towards the U-shaped pencil line. Then draw lines that are reversed in curved direction. These lines start on the U-shaped line and end at the center oval. Make sure each new line touches an old line, creating a very gently curved S shape. Use a writer pen tip to burn in the pencil lines you have drawn. I chose to burn all of the lines along the outer half of the saucer first, and then burn in the lines on the inner half. Once you are done burning in the lines, make sure to rub over the area with a pencil eraser to remove any residual graphite. Switch to a shader and burn along the area where the U-shaped line was. I use circular motion for this step. Also burn along the outer edge of the saucer to define its edge. Then re-burn along the outer edge using circular motion to darken it up. Lastly, burn next to the edge of the center oval. Repeat the shading process on the remaining saucers. use circular motion to burn along the area where the U-shaped line was, then burn next to the oval in the center of the saucer, and lastly burn along the outer edge of the saucer. Which order you do these 3 burns in really doesn't matter. Keep in mind that you can burn the saucers in one at a time as I am doing, or you can do all of one step before doing the next. For example, you could burn along the outer edge of each saucer and then burn next to the center oval. Again, it really doesn't matter what order you do the steps in, as the end results will be the same. Use the razor edge of the shader to burn in the pencil lines on the outer edge of the Celtic Knot border. Again, when you're burning in these pencil lines, if it is easier for you to use a writer pen tip, then please do so. Rotate the wood and burn along the inner edge of the Celtic Knot border. Then burn short, dark pull-away strokes along the inner edge of the border. Start the stroke on the inner edge and pull it towards the outer edge. Stop the stroke at the halfway mark. Rotate the wood, if needed, and burn short pull-away strokes along the outer edge of the border. Start the stroke on the outer edge and pull it towards the inner edge, again stopping near the halfway mark. Use a shader to fill in the area around the Celtic Knot to a tan color. There's not a lot of room here, so I'm using a short back and forth motion. I chose to keep the color pretty pale so it would contrast with the border, but feel free to adjust the darkness level to your preferences. Use a writer pen tip to burn along the edges of the Celtic Knot to give them better definition. After you're done burning along the edges, then burn some dots on the space behind the knot. This will help darken the area a little and add some texture. Switch to a shader pen tip and burn short, dark pull-away strokes along the right edge of the vertical or the top loop on the Celtic Knot. Start the stroke on the right edge and pull it towards the left edge, stopping near the halfway mark. When you near the top of the loop, shorten your strokes. Make sure you don't accidentally burn over the horizontal loop on the Celtic Knot. Rotate the wood if needed and burn short, dark pull-away strokes along the bottom edge of the horizontal loop of the Celtic Knot. Start the stroke on the bottom edge and pull it towards the top edge, again stopping near the halfway mark. If needed, use a writer pen tip to darkly burn along the burned edges of the Celtic Knot to give them better definition. Use the razor edge of the shader or a writer pen tip to burn along the edges of the border framing the honeycomb. The border has 2 parts, an inner and outer band. The outer band has gaps in it, so avoid burning on those. Then burn along the edges of the honeycomb. After you have burned along the edges of each hexagon, then burn really short, dark pull-away strokes along all of the edges. Rotate the wood as needed to make the process of burning pull-away strokes as easy as possible. I find that pulling the pen tip towards me is much more comfortable, and I have a lot more control than I do if I'm pushing the pen tip away from me. After the edges have been burned with pull-away strokes, then lightly burn over the center of each one. Lightly burn around the edges of the gap that are on the border. Next, burn short tan-colored pull-away strokes along the bottom edge of the gaps. Then burn short tan pull-away strokes along the upper edge of the gap. Rotate the wood as needed while you work. After the gaps are done, then burn short, dark pull-away strokes along the upper edge of the outer border. Start the stroke on the upper edge and pull it towards the lower edge. Stop the stroke near the halfway mark. Repeat the process of burning short, dark pull-away strokes along the lower edge of the border. Start the stroke on the lower edge and pull it towards the upper edge, again stopping near the halfway mark. Rotate the wood as needed while you work. Switch to a knife pin tip and burn lots of thin, parallel lines along the lower edge of the inner border. Start the line on the lower edge, this is the edge next to the honeycomb, and pull it towards the upper edge. After you have filled in the area with the thin parallel lines, use a shader to burn along the base of the lines. The base is the side touching the honeycomb. Darkly burn along the edges of the pods, then use a shader to burn dark pull-away strokes along the outer edge of the pod. Start the stroke on the edge and pull it towards the center of the pod. Rotate the wood as needed while you work. Make sure to overlap your strokes and to re-burn as needed to get smooth results. Then burn short pull-away strokes along the edge of the oval in the center of the pod. Use a knife pin tip to burn curving lines across the center of the oval. Start the line on the right side of the oval and allow it to gently curve downward towards the left side. Let the space between the lines widen out as you get closer to the left side of the oval. Switch to a brighter pin tip and burn lines or a row of dots between each of those curving lines. Use a brighter pin tip to burn along the edges of the banner. Then, using either a brighter pin tip or a small ball pin tip, burn a row of tiny dots next to the edges of the banner. Then switch to a shader pin tip and burn in the kidney shape above the pod to a brown hue. Next, burn thick, dark tan bands or wide lines on the banner where it changes directions. Use a shader pin tip to burn pull-away strokes that start on the dark tan band and get pulled towards the next band. Let the color fade at the halfway mark. This will give the banner a bowed look. Move to the next banner segment and repeat the process. Start by burning the thick, dark tan bands at each of the direction changes on the banner. Then use the shader pin tip to burn tan pull-away strokes that start on that tan band and get pulled towards the next band. Let the color fade halfway between the two bands to give it a bowed look. Use either a ball or a brighter pin tip to burn large dots around the center oval on the pods. Burn in the pencil lines on the finials. Then burn in the bottom half of the small teardrop on top of the finials. Next, burn along the top and the bottom of each finial, leaving the center or the middle pale. Do the same steps for the remaining finials. Burn the bottom half of the small teardrop that is on top of the finial. Then burn the bottom and the top half of the finial, but leave the center or the middle of it much paler. Burn a dark line along the edge of the chocolate kiss. Then burn dark pull-away strokes along the edge of the kiss. Start the stroke on the outer edge and pull it towards the center of the kiss. Overlapping the strokes will help eliminate individual burn strokes and give it a much smoother look. The last step is to use a writer pen tip and burn squiggly lines on the pods. If you are uncomfortable doing this, then pencil in your lines first. Once you are happy with the design, then use your writer pen tip to burn over the pencil marks. If the board you are using is large enough, you can repeat the design on other parts of the board. I used a printout to get an idea of where I would want to place the design. Well, that's it for this tutorial. I hope you liked the artwork and will try it for yourself. On my website, Pyrography Made Easy, there is a written tutorial and a free pattern for this artwork. I put a link to that in the description below. Well, thank you for watching my video, and I will see you next week.